All right guys, if you've been struggling with your driver, I have got an awesome video for you. We're gonna talk about 3 moves that will absolutely kill your driver. You're gonna lose speed, you're gonna lose distance, you're gonna lose consistency if you're doing these 3 things. And I'm also gonna give you the solution to these so we'll be hitting it longer and straighter and have a lot more fun. Let's go and get started. All right, so piece number 1, that's what I call the fast backswing, slow downswing. Obviously, we don't want our downswing to be slow. We want the speed to be happening right at the ball, getting that acceleration right at the ball. That's what really helps us to get those long drives. But the common mistake that I see is when we're setting up to this golf ball, we naturally want to hit it pretty far. And in order to hit it far, it feels like the stronger we are and the tighter we hold this club, the better it's going to be. So if I set up and I'm really locked up with my body and I'm got the really tight hands and I get that tight fast backswing, that ball went probably 50 yards shorter than when I would normally hit it. The reason for that is when we get tight like that and we get quick like this, what happens is we don't give our body enough time to load up in the backswing. We don't give our body enough time to rotate and to get that speed. So before we talked about an airport runway. Imagine a big 747 jumbo jet taking off down the runway. It needs a certain amount of runway to build up its speed and to take off the ground. Same thing happens in your golf swing. If I'm tight with my hands and I get really quick with my hands, the tendency is going to be to pick this club up, and now I haven't really rotated my hips, I haven't rotated my shoulders, and I haven't got my hands very far back. I've basically picked the club up with my wrist only, and I've made a very short swing. Now from here, the only thing I can do is to throw it with my hands again, get those wrists really active in the downswing and kind of flip this club through, and I'm really feeling like I'm putting out a ton of effort. If you ever feel like you're on the golf course trying to hit your driver far, but the harder you swing, the shorter it goes, it's probably what is happening to a certain degree. If I feel like I'm putting out a ton of effort and I'm not getting that distance, it's because I'm using too much hands. Now the solution for this is really simple. We need to slow down that backswing. I need to give my body plenty enough time to turn. I can take a year in the backswing if I want to. Doesn't matter how fast your backswing is. All that matters is how fast the club head's moving at impact. So if I think nice and slow, what I want you to do is do this for a practice swing. Get up out of your chair right now, grab your driver or any club that you have laying around. If you got a broomstick, a handle, whatever you can grab a hold of. I want you to make a super slow backswing, and I want us to first focus in on this belt buckle of our hips. I want this belt buckle to turn as far to the right as we can get that to happen, and I'm going to let that happen over a really long period of time. So I'm going to count up my backswing 5 seconds. 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, still focusing on that backswing, or my belt buckle turning. 4 1,000, 5 1,000. Now when this happens, you'll notice my right leg is going to extend just a little bit to let my hips turn. If my knee stays really locked in and forward, you'll see I can't really rotate my hips. My knee has to straighten slightly as that happens. When you're doing this, make sure that knee doesn't turn out. When that happens, when my knee turns out, the inside of my right foot's going to come off the ground, and now I'm going to tend to sway with my hips when I'm doing that. That's another mistake that I see when people are trying to make a bigger backswing. They get those hips swaying to the right instead of just rotating to the right. So that's really important. 5-second backswing. We're going to pause for a second at the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Really load it up. Don't worry if you're not flexible, just go as far as you can. I'm going to pause for a second, and then I'm going to swing on through and make a good full turn all the way around to the finish. That's going to be my first key for the slow backswing. Piece number 2 is I'm going to make my hands make a big circle on the way back. I'm going to envision that in that same 5-second backswing, there's a giant hoop here that's allowing my hands and arms to go back as wide as they can. So again, 1 1,000, 2 1,000. Look how wide my hands are. Notice my thumbs, they're pointed down. So this would be down, this would be ulnar deviation, this would be radial deviation. Thumb up or back toward my chest would be radial deviation, down would be ulnar deviation. Don't have to memorize the terms, but if my thumbs are down, I'm very wide here. I'm creating this big arc, giving myself plenty of time to create that speed. If my hands pick my thumbs up really quickly, now you can see my thumbs are pointing more up toward the sky, now I don't have as much time and space. I'm really getting that club to whip back very soon rather than loading up like you're seeing the best players, Adam Scott, Tiger Woods in the early 2000s, Ernie Els, a lot of great players getting some tons of width in the backswing. Davis Love III, another big hitter with a lot of width. So I'm doing the same thing, 3 1,000, 4 1,000, 5 1,000. And again, I'm just going as far as I can with my natural flexibility. And then from there, I'm gonna go ahead and swing all the way on around to a good full finish, concentrating just on the hands. So we've done the hips, and now we've done the hands, and that's gonna slow down that backswing and get that good full rotation on the way back so we can do the downswing. Now the last piece here is when we're thinking about getting that speed, I've got plenty of time. Now my hands and my body are really loaded up. I've got all this space to create this speed versus if I just pick it up with my hands and arms, I'm going from here to there, not gonna be very easy. Now I've got all this space because I'm much farther back. So how do I finish this off? What I want you to imagine is you're gonna get the swoosh of this club head to happen in front of this tee. We call this a straight line release. I want this club to be accelerating through the ball and going to the release point, which is in front of the golf ball. If we want to be consistent, the golf ball has to get in the way. I can't swing at the golf ball or I'm going to be incredibly inconsistent. I need to swing through the golf ball to my release and just let the contact happen. So once I've done my 5 or 10 hips, 5 or 10 hands going back, now I want to concentrate 5 or 10 swings, nice slow backswing, but I'm really accelerating to that release point out in front. I'm not even going to worry about what's happening at contact. So if you're outside, if you're at the driving range, go ahead and put a tee in the ground. We're going to do the same 5-second backswing, 1 1,000, 2 1,000, 3 1,000, 4 1,000, 5 1,000. I'm going to pause. Now in my mind's eye, I'm only focusing on there, and I'm going to swing as hard as I can to that position. Now again, don't have to worry about, don't do anything that's going to hurt yourself. Just swing as fast as you can comfortably, and that's going to time up that long, slow backswing, good acceleration through the ball. That's going to be your best friend when you're trying to hit those booming drives. All right, so now we're ready for key number 2. It's what I call the drag and drop. And what this means is if I'm coming through contact and I'm just dragging my hands through contact, if I feel like I'm pulling the butt end of the club just straight toward the target, feeling like my hands can move toward the target as fast as I can, there's a big problem with that. That's going to leave my club face wide open. Notice as I drag my hands through here, look how the face is pointing way out to the right somewhere. I'm really going to struggle with my consistency. The reason I call it the drag, that's the drag move, and drop, is because if you do the drag, you're going to hit it over into the water, into the trees, out of bounds. You're going to have to go back to your bag and drop another ball out. You're going to really struggle being consistent with that. So we have to get this club head to release. We can't just drag it through contact or my face is going to be wide open. I have to get that club to square on up. And there's something that's very important when I'm doing this. There's 2 pieces here. Number 1, if I'm coming down really steep, so my club makes a very vertical angle here on the downswing, that's going to put me in a position where it's really tough to square up this face. I'm going to tend to just kind of drag the club through there, and now my face is wide open. Typical over the top move, or a lot of times people really struggle with this. Very, very common. We have the idea of I'm going to pull straight through to the target. My club gets steep, I'm coming over the top, and now my face is very open. I'm slicing it out to the right. Well, if I want to fix this, I want to shallow out the club to start the downswing. So here's what I want you to imagine. I want you to grab this club straight up and down vertical like this, and I want you to rotate it to the right. So if you notice my left hand, my logo of my glove is going up to the sky, and I'm even going more exaggerated until it's turned this way. My right hand, if I was to go ahead and have that open up, now it's more toward the sky. Well, if I turn and make my backswing and put my hands together, that's a very shallow move. I've shallowed out this club. I'm exaggerating here a little bit, kind of like a Sergio Garcia, but I'm really shallowing out that club. Well, from here, from this shallowing position, this much more shallow position, it's very easy to get this club to kick out, inside out, and square through the ball. If I'm getting steep, I'm going to tend to drag this club through and have it open. If I'm shallow, I can get my body to rotate on through. The club's going to accelerate and catch up in front of my body. But the big key with this is now my straight line release is going to be in the front, just like we talked about earlier. If I'm dragging it on through, I'm never getting to my straight line release. I'm just holding off right on through it, or I feel like I'm trying to hold this angle all the way through there. I've got to get this club shallow, and then I'm going to let it release to my straight line release. Notice how the face here is going to turn on over and be about 45 degrees closed. So if this is dead square, that face is going to turn on over at my straight line release, and the toe of the club is going to rotate around. That's what allows you to help hit the ball straight. If I feel like I'm dragging the face is open, it stays open, and then I'm going back to my bag to drop again. So to get this drill down, let's do a 2-piece drill here. Number one, I want you to do 5 or 10 of these where we just rotate the club to the right. Once we rotate it to the right here where it's parallel, grab your hands together like your golf swing and go to the top of your swing, and now you're gonna feel like this is really, really laid off, super flat. I'm exaggerating here. We're not worried about getting exactly right. We're just going a little too much at first. So that's the first piece. A few of these, get the club parallel. I'm gonna put my hands together, and now I'm gonna go to the top of my backswing, and my club is gonna be very shallow. From there, I'm gonna let this club release to my straight line release. Now my hips, my shoulders, my club, everything's pointed out in front, and my club is rotated around about 45 degrees. You're gonna get the sensation that this club head is turning on over under its own momentum. It's not being drugged through and the face is holding open. We're letting that club face go ahead and rotate on around and release on around. So it's that momentum of the club face releasing that's gonna help you from dragging the club and getting that slice. So once we've hit this position, we've gone to our straight line release about 10 times. Now we're gonna go ahead and make about 10 practice swings, just concentrating on the same thing. Feeling that flatter swing and then letting that release out in front another 10 times. Now that we're good to go, we're gonna go ahead, go to the driving range and hit a few shots doing this, get that nice little draw so you won't be holding off on the club at all. Piece number 3 is absolutely the simplest one. It's really, really easy to do. What we want to avoid is having those concrete hips. Just like we talked about in the first piece, I need to load up my body, get this big rotation, so now I have all this space to create speed in my downswing. Nobody can create speed with a little tiny short backswing. You can't do it. Doesn't matter how big and strong you are, you're losing out 30, 40, 50 yards on the drive if you're only taking the club back to here. Well, when we have what I call concrete hips, what's happening is I really want to make sure that I'm hitting this ball. So I don't want to take my eye off of it. And a lot of times, I think everybody struggles with this, is we get locked in on the ball. All of our focus is on the golf ball, and now I'm afraid to turn my hips away. You can almost imagine like you're sitting in a giant barrel and you're full of concrete and your hips are locked in here, everything's facing the ball, and now I don't want to move my hips and I just kind of swing all arms and hands. And even if I hit it right down the middle, pretty solid, just not going to go anywhere. That probably went 50, 60 yards shorter than what I'd normally hit a drive. That's because I haven't let my body rotate to get the speed. Again, the more I rotate, the bigger my backswing, the more speed that I can create, and the farther it's going to go, the easier it's going to be to hit. Also, the smoother it's going to be. So if you want that smooth, effortless power, this is the way to go. So all we're going to do for this one, this is by far the simplest tip. I want you to start out just by letting your knees kind of flow in the backswing. Now, this isn't going to be a real golf swing. We're going to exaggerate here a little bit, but I just want to get you the feeling of loosening up. So I want you to make a few swings where you just go back and through and really let those knees relax and loosen a little bit. Let your left heel lift off the ground in the backswing. Let your right heel lift off the ground in the fall through. Again, not a golf swing yet, just really getting loose with the knees. Now I want you to concentrate on those hips being loose. I'm going to let them rotate in the backswing again, getting that big turn with the hips, getting the big turn with the hips coming through. And then finally, as we do a few more of these, I'm going to concentrate on my shoulders. Everything really loose, good range of motion, go as far as you can back and through. And then my hands, last, making that big arc. So I've gone from my lower body, letting it rotate, letting it turn, to my hips, to my shoulders, to my hands and arms. Now that I've loosened everything up, I'm not stuck in this concrete, I feel like it's easier to turn. Don't be afraid if you feel like you're turning away from the ball. If I feel like I'm in my backswing facing back here toward the camera, or even up here, that's completely fine. The ball's still going to be there when you get back down. You don't have to feel like you're in a rush. Take all the time you need to turn away from it. So after we got, as many as it takes, if it only takes 5 or 10 to get loose, or if it takes 2 or 3 minutes, 50, 60, 100 swings, whatever it takes to loosen that up and lengthen the swing is what you want. So we got to get rid of those concrete hips. Notice how my hips are going to rotate on this one, and we'll get some great speed with this. All right, guys, work on those 3 tips. I promise you, it's going to loosen up that swing, make those drives that much easier. See you soon. Just like we talked about earlier in this video, the straight line release is probably the most important thing you can do with your driver to stop getting ball bound. When we stop hitting at the golf ball and start swinging through the golf ball, things get a lot easier. I've got a great bonus for you. I'm gonna play a preview of one of my best straight line release videos. All you have to do is click the iCard up on your screen or click the link down below in the description. You'll get instant access to that video, plus a lot more bonuses. Let's go and get started with that straight line release. You know, a common misconception I see is that we wanna create lag and we just wanna hold that lag all the way on through contact and get as much lag as we can coming through contact, and that's simply not true. In the release section, we're going to talk about how to turn that lag into energy, how to turn that into speed so that you can hit it very far and do it, like we mentioned, without hardly any effort at all. And as we're coming through contact, we're going to fully release this angle as we're about 45 past contact. So if I draw, you know, a 45-degree angle, I should be looking at both arms, nice and straight, the club splitting those arms, so that by releasing the club, by getting this angle to release as we're coming through contact, that's what's going to create the speed. Our hands are moving a very short distance, our club is moving a very long distance through contact, and it creates that whip-like effect.
Very different swings hitting the exact same position. So first let's take a look at Dustin Johnson releasing the club 45 past. And the reason we're going to see such different swings producing similar positions is that this is the real physics of how this has to happen. Here we're looking at Sergio Garcia. Again, we're going to see tons